Hello, welcome to my video. Today's video is going to be a little different than the other ones, but I think it's just as important. I'll mainly be talking about my experience with depression, anxiety, hopelessness, nihilism, and as well as how I found purpose in a very purposeless world, or at least a purposeless worldview and perspective that I had at the beginning, but then began to change over time once I got a little insight into at least my own kind of, in a way, lesser level of transcendence and understanding. So let's start way back when I was 4 years old. All I ever did was play with the neighborhood kids. I was very curious, and I never really got any answers because, I just got distracted with other things, or, my parents were working, or didn't really understand the questions that I was asking, even though to me they made perfect sense in my head, and now have the ability to finally understand them. So, it all happened at 4 years old when a specific scenario triggered something within my brain. And it was just a scary figure on a TV show. That was all it was. But my brain took whatever was on that screen, that projection, literally. And it manifested itself in my dreams and oftentimes as auditory hallucinations, and in the complete dark, with the complete absence of light. Then there would be visual hallucinations. I wouldn't have hallucinations in the normal sense. It was more so, think about sleep paralysis, but you can move around. Practically that. And only when it was completely dark. So it wasn't real hallucinations like a schizophrenic person would have, but just something that would manifest itself in darkness. And so, I couldn't really sleep in the dark at all. Thankfully now they're gone, but from 4 years old until I was 12, it was really rough for me. And I couldn't sleep in the dark, and I was terrified practically of everything that had to do with something unknown, something I didn't quite understand or was able to rationalize, obviously. And what I did from that point is what I think is pretty common, is I disassociated myself from the person I was at night. I created a boundary between these two perceptual versions of myself, and I would close off this version in the daytime so that I could still experience a somewhat normal experience, right? So the only thing I knew how to do was just keep pushing things away. And obviously, at this age, if you don't have professional help, you're not going to be able to push through these problems, especially if you don't have quite the verbal capabilities to talk about them. And by when I was 6, 7, 8, when I was really able to understand these things, I just thought it was ludicrous, and I thought it was something that I should deal with by myself. And a lot of the memories that I had when I was younger were completely just disassociated from my memory, and it took a lot of years of working through these problems to get them back. I'll explain what these have to do with depression and anxiety later in life when I was a teenager, but from right now, I'm kind of giving y'all the past, kind of what happened, and I created a secondary layer of myself that was the personification that I needed to use in order to function in society. And because of that, I kept having these hallucinations, kept having these dreams, especially. It was mainly dreams, and it was so lonely, obviously. Right? And I don't want to be like a sob story because, on the surface, I was a pretty normal kid. Pretty normal. I had friends. I would talk with them. I would have fun, actually, with these friends. And I would experience somewhat real emotions. And I wouldn't say they got to the core of my being, because the core of my being was focused on keeping all of these atrocious things pushed way down in the recesses of my psyche. And so as I pursued, more the social aspect of development, I pushed down the introspective parts of me that I needed in order to truly flourish as a human being. And so I continued this for a couple of years, right? Until I reached about 12, 13, 14, when I got really integrated into a social society and I was able to completely disassociate myself from these past experiences. So in a way, I thought I was free. I could just put these away. It didn't matter. And that's when it kind of triggered. And what I mean by trigger is that I started to experience so much depression, so much anxiety, and a complete lack of fundamental experiential emotions, right? I had no care for others or other people's experiences because I couldn't care for my own. I didn't have the energy to care for other people because I couldn't find any meaningful experience within my own. And so I lived this way for quite a while, chasing hedonistic desires and social pleasures when I had nothing actually inside of me, because the true essence of my being was locked away for fear that it would destroy me like it did my younger self. And I think in a lot of ways we all kind of deal in a way with something similar, this disassociation and then lack of meaningful experience, because the essence of our being is not there. It's fighting a battle that you're unconscious of, because you don't want to be conscious of it, obviously, for survival reasons. Now, I would say not for meaningful reasons, but definitely good for survival in the short and medium term. So as I continue that, right, I live life and I go through these habitual patterns of hedonistic tendencies and a meager understanding of life with no feeling of purpose. I mean, I didn't try at all in school. All I did was watch TV. I worked out because, I liked looking good, but it wasn't even for health benefits. I just wanted to have big muscles because I thought that would be something, right? And from that point, I would say, I kind of developed an ulterior perception of the world. It wasn't the main essence of my being, but it was a persona that I lived by, even on the inside. Even behind closed doors, I still recognized myself with this persona. And through that, I kind of gained this kind of up and down seasonal depression in my life. And I knew when things bad were going to start happening. And they really had nothing to do with the external world. It was all introspective. And a lot of the things and a lot of the problems in my life were stemming from myself, and my unconscious was trying to tell me that bad things are going to happen because of, internal reasons, but I externalized them for the safekeeping of my ego and the safety lock on those horrors behind the unconscious psyche, or inside the unconscious psyche. And keep in mind, I'm a pretty normal guy. It's not like I had a terrible childhood or anything like that. This is something that is definitely psychological, right? Even physiological, potentially, based on the food I was eating. But we ate pretty healthy as a family, and I was in extracurricular activities. I had a social environment. I have really nothing to complain about. And yet still, there are internal psychological problems that manifested throughout my entire life. You don't need to have these really rough moments, and most of us do. Like, people have rough moments, and I'm talking about really rough moments here. For YouTube's sake, I'm not going to go into detail, obviously. And that is a harder thing to go through, and it's something that you won't hear from me, because that's not necessarily my experience completely. What I experienced was dissociative boundary between the essence of my being and the persona that I carried. And I think that is universal in essence. And it's something that I've noticed within myself, and I thought I'd, share with others. And I want to point something out. And that is that either you choose your pain or life chooses it for you. And oftentimes, even that statement is a bidirectional relationship, to where internal pain, running away from those internal struggles, pushing them down, which is what we do for the necessity for, immediate survival in the present moment, it oftentimes creates and manifests itself in life very destructively. And if we take life's pain and work through it introspectively, then oftentimes we can create meaningful experience despite whatever situation we're in. And I don't know how far that goes within the confines of reality, right? But I think that is true to some degree because I found it within myself. And how I got to that point was throughout all this, I finally reached the maximum amount of pleasure and of egocentrism that I possibly thought possible at the time. And at that point, my girlfriend broke up with me. And when I say I loved her, I did, man. I really did. A lot. Not saying that I should have or anything, but I did nonetheless. And I never said anything because, I knew it probably wasn't ready. But, after 7 months, it was over. And that pain that I felt triggered something inside of me. And I think what happened was that I went way too far down to the very bottom of the spiral towards absolute nihilism. And I was completely nihilistic at that specific point. And once I was there, once everything was meaningless, where there was no meaning, I realized that because there was no meaning, right now, the possibilities are actually infinite. And I wondered what the infinite pursuit of truth would entail for someone like me. What does it mean to know things? To know what lies beyond our meager perceptions? What is reality? What metaphysical viewpoint should I have? Who am I? What does it mean to be a conscious agent within the confines of a physical reality? Whatever physical reality is. And I became obsessed with pursuing truth. That is the only thought in my head at that point, once I reached the bottom of the spiral, was what the heck is truth? That's literally what I said. I didn't even say, like, oh, I wonder what this life's all about. I didn't care about this life, but what entails an objective reality, because it's something far beyond what we interface with, right? I'm not going to go into complete detail about just that, but I realized my own ignorance of what truly was reality, because I was always looking for a way out. And I think what manifested in me was that I realized the only way out is through. And I realized I had to go through things. And through that transformation, it created meaningful experience. And it did because I realized that I knew nothing. Because everything stemmed from just my fundamental belief system. I just believed things. I never knew them. And I realized that if I were to change what I believe in, what I value, and maybe harmonize with fundamental principles in a psychological way, or even a spiritual way, and pursued that through a scientific understanding of reality, I might get somewhere, and I might actually find meaning, or at least go through life with an understanding that there is such thing as meaningful experience. And I'm not saying that I've found it at all, but there is something more that characterizes the external world in relation to the internal one. And I'm not going to get too specific about what I think is fundamental, because that's not really what matters. I mean, all I would be projecting is just another belief system. And that's fine, right? You can watch my other videos, and maybe that'll give you some insight into that. But all that to say is that I realized the importance also of genuine expression. And I think a lot of people go on these self-discovery journeys that are complete positive experiences. That doesn't sound like transformation to me. That sounds like running away from the essence of your being. If your self-discovery isn't painful, isn't uncomfortable, then I think you're just trying to run away from yourself. I don't think you're really trying to get to the essence of how you should transform to radically be something that you were meant to be. And I'm not sure if what you are meant to be is created or fundamentally oriented. I think if we look at the biological process of gene propagation and successful environmental integration, I think fundamentally it is oriented. And I think we can manifest that in different pursuits. And I think those pursuits are infinite, especially with the world we live in today. We've radically created a world with more possibilities than ever thought possible. It sucks that we use such technological advancements to create divide within the world. And where only the rich really get to fully experience that. But the rich, they often are pursuing things of a hedonistic level. I mean, like power, money, sex, women, fame, ego, a lot of those things. And you often find that, the people, the true essence of being, are the ones who go through or have gone through suffering in pursuit of something greater than even themselves. It's not that suffering is good by any means necessary. Your life should not be characterized by suffering. But it's pursuing through the suffering to a better positive experience. That is the beginning of transformation. And that is what I experienced when I kind of reached the bottom of that spiral and I was able to take my life, because I didn't care about it at all, and look at it from a completely objective perspective. And from there I found the necessary orientation to create meaningful experience for myself. And I think that we can't take that as trivial, but something that is fundamentally necessary and is oriented for us. Whether we created it or if the process of all of life and all of conscious integration was meant for it. Meant for your elongated, informative experience towards something meaningful. And I hope this resonates with y'all, because, or if y'all want me to go into any more detail about my own experience, I'll answer questions or maybe even start another video. So, all that to say, I obviously have my problems, of course, that I haven't worked through. Right? It's a process. But what I did was I faced the essence of my being. Who are you truly? And you can interpret that any way possible. I mean, I can go into the different metaphysical ontologies about what you are, but all those are just beliefs, right? You are the objective being that has been manifested in different belief systems. So why not do a little true introspection without listening to all these other opinions, right? Because they're just opinions. You should listen to yourself, understand what you've gone through, and allow the process of unlocking those memories to ensue. The memories that have held you back for so long, because we are still the same person that we were when we were 1 year old, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All of those early stages of development that really define the nature of our personifications are us. That is us. And if we don't go back to understanding what it was like before that, and the true essence of our curiosity and wonder of reality, then I don't think we'll ever get to the true essence of meaningful experience, because there are so many things that we run away from, and what I still run away from. There are things that I've obviously worked through, but because I've worked through them, I've come to an understanding of what they look like and the barriers that are still holding me back. I can feel them, but I'm far too scared still to completely unlock them. And I'm working through it, man. I'm really trying. But it's only been like 2 years. And I think a lot of the things, because I've gotten to where my true essence of being is, but I still haven't unlocked its full, genuine manifestation within myself. And I know that's very spiritual, but I would like you to view it as more so psychological and more personal than metaphysical, okay? So that's really all I have to say. Hope you enjoyed the video, and can't wait for the next one. Peace out.